Hey folks, Pete here with the River Kings. I've got all my whitewater boats laid out because I'm making a rack over here on the wall. And let me show you what I got. So basically I store all my boats in a vertical arrangement, and I've just had them leaning against the wall, and if the wind blows real hard or if people bump into them, these things can slide. So what I'm doing is I'm bolting a 2x4 on the wall. I'm going to do one more section, and then I'm going to put a piece of plywood on top with scalloped out sections so that the boats sit in there and don't slide back and forth, don't get knocked off. And then we'll talk about this rack I built a few years back. I'll show you how I did it and the dimensions and all that. So stay tuned for kayak racks. So what I'm doing now is I'm ripping the plywood to 8-inch lengths, and this is plywood I'm using for another project in the house for my son. But with 8-inch rips, I'm going to cut them to 90 inches, which is going to give me what I need distance-wise in there. And then each 90-inch section will have 3 boat slots kind of cut out with a jigsaw. And it'll just be enough where the kayaks won't be sliding around if you bump them or the wind blows. There's nothing worse than coming into your shop and all your kayaks are laid over on their sides. It's really embarrassing. All right, so most whitewater boats, most normal size whitewater boats are no more than 24, 25 inches wide. Something like the Katana is going to be a little wider, but that's also too tall to stand up in this building. So at 24 inches wide, I want a little gap between them so I can get them in and out easily. And I'm just going to make it 30 because that works out perfectly with the space I have. And I could probably get one more if I cramped them up, but then they'd be cramped up, and that would annoy me. So we're going with a 30-inch center, which gives 3 inches on either side. So it'll be about 6 inches between each boat. So I think that's going to work out pretty good. 90 inches on these rips. I got 180 inches total. The math is all too easy. So I'll come 30, 60, and 90 will be the centers. Let me do a math on that. So without making too much rocket science, I've just made 30-inch centers for the boat. And that means I come in 15 inches, 45 inches, and 75 inches for the center. I'm going to go out 14 each way. So it's a 28-inch scallop. That leaves 1 inch on the end, 2 inches here, 2 inches in between, and 1 inch on the end. When I butt my next one up, that 1 inch will make the 2 inches. So each scallop will have 2 inches between, and with 1 inches on the end if you want to add on later. It's not too hard. So I basically have a 28-inch side to side, and I need to leave 1.5 inches at the back because my 2x4 is going to be there. So I'm going to have a 6.5 inch deep arc in 28 inches. A lot of ways to do it. Just bending something uniform is pretty easy, and I'll probably try to do that. If not, I'll have to describe a line. So let's see what I can come up with. All right, this is getting kind of redneck, but it's okay. So I'm cheating a little bit, and I'm just trying to get it done because I just need it to function. I don't need to be super awesome. So what I've done is put a couple screws here at the ends of my 28-inch scallop, and I put a mark 1.5 inches back right at 15, and I think I got a way that's going to work. I've got an old El Cheapo Guest fly rod. I'm just going to put the fly rod up against it between the two screws and bend it and then mark it with my Sharpie. So I guess you got to use what you got, right? All my tools are put up and I just don't want to get them out. And I think this is going to work. Let's see. All right, so a fishing rod does not bend uniformly. As it tapers, it bends more at the tip, which everyone knows that. So I use the same exact place on the fishing rod. Then I flip the fishing rod, do the same thing on the right side. So I'd marked it twice, but I basically got the shape I want. You can spend more time on this, get it exactly perfect if you want. I don't think it's gonna matter. I'm gonna jigsaw that, and then I'm gonna take this piece. That's gonna be my template for marking each one. So let me get my jigsaw, cut that, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, there's my template. Okay, so I have my template. I'm gonna put that little mark on the center marks of each of these. As you see that, I'll line it up perfectly each way and then mark it. All right, I guess you can see that I got all 3 scallops cut out. So what I'm going to do now, instead of doing it individually, this is now my new template for marking the other board. So I'm just going to put this board on the other one and transcribe all those cutouts onto it. Quick disclaimer, I am a finished carpenter and this is not acceptable for finished carpentry. And I'm just kind of whacking through it, and some of you out there may be OCD, and if you are, I'm very sorry for watching this, knowing that I could make it perfect. I just don't have an interest in that. I may end up moving this, I may take it down, so I'm just not spending a lot of extra time. I will sand it, but this is all you need. It's gonna hold the kayak, so thanks for bearing with me. All right, nothing to it. Got my 2 pieces. I'm gonna get some screws and a drill. Let's go install it. Line that up at the end and basically screw it in. All right, so as you can see, it's not rocket science today. Nice and easy. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. And I'm gonna change directions a little bit. I'm not even gonna sand it. I'm gonna go with a different kind of project now. Total time I've spent doing this project is 15 minutes, including setting the camera up. Did not include going to get the wood, but from when I started, 15 minutes later, I have my 6-boat kayak rack installed on the shed. Let's put some kayaks on it and see how it works. Oh yeah. All right, there's your kayak rack. Took 15 minutes start to finish. Nice and easy. You're not trying to build a piano here. You're just storing kayaks. They're rock solid. Those aren't moving anywhere. No more slipping around, falling down kayaks. You don't have to worry about bumping them and having them slide around. There's only one problem with this kayak rack. There's an empty spot. Looks like I need one more kayak. All right, so I had a request recently to show y'all this kayak rack I have in my garage, and I built this at my old house and brought it over. It's worked out fantastically. I actually built it to be a 3-rack system, and as the collection grew, I extended the backside off, so that's why it looks really good on one side, and just kind of scabbed on the other. Let me show you what I did. I had lumber laying around, so I didn't just go buy things for the project, except for 2 pieces of plywood. And that's 1/2-inch plywood. It's not OSB, it's the real plywood, so it'll be a little stronger. So as you can see, there's a 2x4 inside a piece of plywood, and that's probably about a 4-inch rip. Up here where the arms are, I gave it a little angle so it'd have a little rigidity, and that's also a 4-inch rip, and then tapered there. Also sandwiching a 2x4. And then I got these same kind of screws I used earlier, but 1.5-inch screws. And I did that on both sides. And you can see all I did there was use a bunch of screws and just kind of scab into what I had here for the back side. And that's all it takes. Same thing all the way down. At the bottom, I did some corner gussets so that would give it a little rigidity to the base because you don't want any of that flopping around. And then underneath all of that, I installed these caster wheels that allow me to roll this thing around wherever I want it inside the garage. So if I need to push it out of the way to do something, that's no problem. And then over the years, buying and selling boats, I would end up with these car top foam pads. And all I do is basically stick those over the 2x4 because you don't want your kayaks resting on that really hard 2x4. You want to give them a little padding. And that's basically all there is to it. Up at the top, I did the triangle again on both sides so that this doesn't rock side to side that bad. It's got a little give in it, but this is many, many years old and I've never had an issue with it. So you can just grab it and wheel it around inside the garage wherever you need it. It's no issue at all. And again, if I had done this from the beginning, I probably would have done this on both sides, but that would have required 4 pieces of the 1/2-inch plywood because that's all out of 1 piece to make it strong. And I just scabbed on these arms, which they're not going anywhere. They don't look quite as good, but you know, sometimes when I'm building things like kayak racks, as you just saw a minute ago, I just need it to work. I need it to work perfectly, but looks really doesn't function into the equation. So if you wanted to make it look really good, you could have done this from the beginning. I wasn't going to start over. I said, you know what, I need 6 kayaks on my rack instead of 3 now. And so I just extended the arms off, and 0 issues over the years. It's been working perfectly. If it's not broke, don't fix it. I also extended the base out the same way, just by scabbing onto the outside and another set of caster wheels out there. So that's my wooden kayak rack. So with the 2 pieces of plywood, and I already had the 2x4s, I probably spent 30 bucks on the wood and maybe another 20 on the caster wheels, and I had the screws laying around. So that was just a quick project for me. It works perfectly. I also have this rad sports one that I just recently picked up by helping a friend buy a kayak. So I drove with him to check them out and buy the kayaks, and this was part of the deal. So he let me have it for my time. Those work out great, but I think that's $150 for a 2-rack system. Looks fantastic. No caster wheels, I could probably add them. Or if you went and bought the wood, because you didn't have any, you're probably gonna be looking at 70 bucks. And you have 6 kayaks. It's about 8 feet tall. I did that so I'd have plenty of room loading. You could probably shrink it down if that height was an issue. But yeah, there you go. That's my messy garage that's getting better and better every day. I still haven't attacked it much yet. I got to put my storage in. That's your 15-minute kayak rack. That's a cheap, simple 6-rack system there on casters. Little things you can do to save a lot of money and you know, store your boats effectively. So Pete with the River Kings, thanks for watching.